There's no way Emu destroyed God Valley because the Celestial Dragons already wanted it erased, but what if I told you that red-haired Shanks found God Valley years after it disappeared and made it his secret base as a Yonko territory? After weeks of endless research, I've come to the conclusion that Shanks is the only character who has both the Will of D and Celestial Dragon bloodlines, making him the most important character in all of One Piece. I've discovered what happened at the God Valley incident, I have answers to why there were Celestial Dragons that Garp had to defend there, and how Rockstar Xebec planned to take over the world, and it all ties back to Shanks. And if that's not crazy enough, I was mind blown to find out that Rock's star is the key to everything, as he even reveals Shanks' lineage. And while going back and reading every Shanks chapter, I've even discovered Oda's Nordic inspiration for red-haired Shanks, new evidence that no one's come across, and it's been foreshadowed since the very first chapter. Today I'm going to reveal Shanks' true name, his parents, all of his territories, how strong his haki is, what happened at God Valley, and the decades of hints and evidence scattered throughout the story, leading me to one mind-blowing conclusion. This is the greatest Shanks theory ever. Shanks is the god of war in One Piece, inspired by the Nordic god of war, Tyr. After playing God of War Ragnarok, I've noticed I've been grunting and mumbling a lot more.
Use your words, brother.
But I've also gotten deeper into Norse mythology, so I went into research mode to find out as much as I could, and it turns out this is somewhat a common theory, as there's Reddit posts about this all the way back in 2019. So I guess we're all onto something here. What I'm about to tell you is mind-blowing and proves Shanks' connections to Elbaf, which will be important for the final saga of One Piece. In Nordic religions and mythology, Tyr is the god of war of the Nordic realms. Tyr sacrificed his arm to Fenrir, a giant wolf, maintaining chaos as he tries to save Odin, who was prophesied to die by Fenrir. Now, I hope you're paying attention and keep this in the back of your mind for now, because it gets crazy when we plug the pieces together. If you've watched this video on the original Joyboy, you'll know that we believe that he is the representation of Odin in One Piece, the one-eyed Norse king of the gods. Who is Oda saving the piratey eye patch for? Well, he's hinted that we'll see this character one day, and so who better than the original pirate king, Joyboy? After all, there's nothing more piratey than an eye patch. In 2007, Oda said that he can't wait to draw and show us the character with the eye patch. He says it'll be a character at the end of One Piece, so it tells us it'll be important. And I won't go into all the mind-blowing evidence that proves Odin being Joyboy and the one-eyed foreshadowing like Luffy's eye being closed in the Skypiea volume, so instead I'll leave a full link to the video in the description if you're interested. And if you want to know the real reason why the Elbaf warriors wear the horn Viking helmets and why they have a sun symbol on their ships, you'll definitely want to check that out. Going back to Odin being Joyboy, the king of the gods, a fitting title for the greatest legend in One Piece, the sun god is someone that people from Elbaf all the way to Skypiea worship. Odin's name means master of ecstasy, which proves he is Joyboy, since ecstasy means overwhelming feeling of joy and excitement, just like Nika or Joyboy. The other definition of ecstasy is an emotional or religious frenzy or trance-like state. Another perfect definition of Luffy first going into Gear 5 as he shows uncontrollable excitement. And to top it all off, Odin was known for wearing a straw hat, also known as a broad hat or sun hat. These are only a few of the reasons why we believe that Odin is Joyboy, and why Luffy will end up with one eye and wear an eye patch at the end of the series, and will only make him look even more like the true pirate king. But if we plug everything together, going back to the Shanks god of war theory, this all fits perfectly, as Shanks sacrificed his arm to the giant fish to save Luffy, or as we know him now as Joyboy, just like Tyr sacrificed his arm to the giant wolf to save Odin, aka the first Joyboy. The similarities are unavoidable, and I wouldn't be surprised if Oda used Tyr's story as inspiration for red-haired Shanks and Luffy.
新しい時代にかけてきた。
When I think of a god of war, I think of a vengeance, fiending monster, a man on the blood path to destroy Olympus. I think of Kratos in the first 3 games, but as I've come to learn over the more recent God of War games, a god of war is not necessarily all about needless violence and slaughtering. Instead, Kratos slowly over time became someone who looks to change his ways, someone who wants a new life away from his past transgression. Tyr in Norse mythology was known as law and justice. He was a powerful sword-wielding warrior and one of the most skilled combatants combatants. However, he preferred reason and logic over force in battle. But if it ever came down to it, Tyr was ready to charge into battle as a leading general. If we think about Shanks' role in the story, his biggest moment is him stopping a war, and we'll come back to this moment because what if I told you this moment told us everything we need to know about Shanks and his origins. In the very first chapter of One Piece, we learn Shanks' true nature. We see Shanks pass up on fighting the low-level mountain bandits, completely patronizing the pathetic fools. This showed us the lesson that Luffy would learn from Shanks, since Luffy said to Helmeppo only a few chapters later that he was too pathetic and a waste of time for him to fight. And of course, and more famously at Jaya, we see a parallel with Bellamy making fun of Luffy and he doesn't fight him until he hurts his friends. Another time Shanks showed his God of War nature was when he goes up to Whitebeard willing to disrespect him to his face as he demands him to stop Ace from going after Blackbeard. With great power comes great responsibility, and no one represents this power better than Shanks. He shows up in big moments, he's aware of the right time to fight and when to prevent bloodshed. Shanks is also seen as someone who is able to reason with the Gorosei, and the Gorosei's biggest role for a while was maintaining the balance throughout the Yonko warlords and marines. Once again, this reminds me of Tyr, someone who when the time comes you do not want fighting against you. And even though he's always been a great fighter since a young boy, he knows when and where is the right time for it. A God of War meaning he leads wars, fights in them, but is also a diplomatic prevention of unnecessary wars. I'm sure Shanks loves fighting. He has a small crew, he has a rivalry with Mihawk, and he's similar to Roger and Luffy who both love fighting as well. I mean, think about it, he was raised by Roger and Rayleigh, a crew of some of the best fighters in the entire One Piece world. Currently, Shanks is who I have as the strongest pirate, hell, even the strongest character in all of One Piece, especially with Kaido and Big Mom out the picture. And we know for a fact that Kaido, the strongest beast, respects Shanks' strength. But I think Shanks proves this even more because I believe that Shanks has maintained Elbaf as one of his main territories. And you might think it sounds crazy, but just wait until the end of the video because I'm gonna review another one of Shanks' territories and that one is even crazier. But first, make sure you subscribe for more future theories as we have plenty of giant mega theories coming out soon, and hit that bell like Luffy and Skypiea to be notified every time we drop. So I started scripting and recording this video a few weeks before chapter 1076, but funny enough, some of this massive theory actually already came true, like the fact that Elbaf is indeed one of Shanks' territories, and my theory that he is so respected throughout the world because he has conquered a powerful military force in the Elbaf warriors. And this just makes me all the more excited to see if anything else in this video becomes true, as it's looking like we're finally going to see Shanks soon enough, hopefully after Egghead. Now let's get into Elbaf being Shanks' territory, why this is so important, and like I said, just keep in mind that I recorded this a few weeks before just in case it sounds like I'm stating things as speculation that are actually already confirmed. Elbaf is fights, Elbaf is warriors, famed for their strength. It's the One Piece version of a giant Viking paradise. And of course this means Elbaf is inspired by Nordic culture, but did you know that Elbaf is located in the region of War Land? And if you believe my Shanks Tyr God of War theory, then this is the biggest evidence that shows us the Warland island known for fighting and power is the God of War's territory. But there's still much more. Oda once said that he loves Vikings as a kid. He would watch a show called Vic the Little Viking. This is what sparked his eventual series One Piece. In a way, Vikings are similar to pirates, especially pirates that we see in the depths of the new world of One Piece. They're true warriors with spirits so loud and powerful. They sail the seas conquering different areas, and who is more of a conqueror than red-haired Shanks himself, who can shoot a conqueror haki-infused missile toward Admiral Greenbull from outside Wano's currents. If we look at Shanks, the Red Force, we can clearly see it's a Viking ship, and Elbaf has the Nordic armor, the Vikings, the helmet, the warrior philosophy. Elbaf being Shanks' territory is fitting, but it would also explain why Big Mom is so careful with the Elbaf giants. She doesn't want beef with them, and she doesn't want to provoke them too hard. She wants to be careful because she knows that Shanks has his flag waving on that island. And it would also explain why everyone is afraid of, or at least respects Shanks, because he conquered the giants. And we know just how feared and how respected the giants are in the series. This feat would make Shanks even more of a legend than he already is. This very well might be one of the most powerful military forces the One Piece world has ever seen. The Elbaf giants could even be how Shanks and his crew learned about the sun god Nika and the Gomu Gomu no Mi Nika fruit, as one of the only times we see Elbaf they are praying to the sun god and saying things like it was the sun god who claimed this disaster, and winter solstice is a festival for the death and rebirth of the sun. Its strength still warms us up again. And once again, if you know us, you understand why we believe this is all referring to Odin, the sun god, and it all comes back together. And keep in mind that Oda is using all of these religions, mythologies, and world history as inspirations for One Piece, loosely basing his own story off the real world. Now, let me tell you about Shanks and his terrifying origins, as this is important to figure out where Shanks' secret main base is located. Shanks was found in a treasure chest that Goldie, Roger, and Rayleigh looted at God Valley. This was confirmed in Volume 4 Billion in Film Red, and the timelines even match up, as Shanks is 37 and the famous God Valley incident happened 38 years ago. There's a few things we know about God Valley. It was a place that the Celestial Dragons wanted to erase from history. It was a place where Rockstar Xebec challenged the world with the Rocks pirates as they attempted to conquer the world, until Goldie Roger and Monkey D. Garp teamed up and faced off against a powerful crew. We also know that Garp doesn't like talking about this event, and one reason is because Celestial Dragons were at God Valley along with their slaves, and Garp had to side with them. He had to protect the people that he hates so much. And this brings me to an even bigger revelation for the Shanks theory. This leads me down the path to believe that Shanks truly is a Celestial Dragon. Not only is Shanks able to meet up with the Godosei after wearing a hood like one of the original founding knights of Mary Joa, but Sengoku obeyed Shanks' orders at Marineford when he showed up to stop the war, specifically saying only because it's you, red hair, just like Lucci obeyed Mosgard and St. Charlos at Mary Joa.
神が欲するものは全て差し出すのは必然.
He's a very special and important figure to the One Piece world, and Oda has been saving him for the endgame for a reason. There's also some extremely valid evidence that proves Shanks is a Celestial Dragon, which is the parallels between Law and Luffy's backstories. For example, Corazon is a Celestial Dragon, or I guess a former one. Luffy looks up to Shanks, Law looks up to Corazon. Shanks and Corazon both stole devil fruits that are worth billions of berries. Luffy eats a Niga fruit, Law eats the Opi Opi no Mi. Shanks saves Luffy sacrificing his arm, and Corazon saves Law sacrificing his entire life. But since Corazon is a former Celestial Dragon, we believe Oda is waiting for a huge reveal that Shanks is a Celestial Dragon as well. And like I explained earlier, Shanks is a god of war, similarly to how the Celestial Dragons are called gods. I just want to quickly add this, since the Shanks Elbaf chapters come out, we see them offering to pay the tribute, similarly to how people pay a heavenly tribute to the Celestial Dragons. So what if this is another hint from Oda that Shanks has Celestial Dragon blood, as they're treating him like one? I believe Shanks' mother was a Celestial Dragon, which will all make sense soon enough. But what about his father? I have some juicy evidence which points into Shanks' father being a member of the D clan. In Shanks' meeting with Whitebeard, Whitebeard says, "When I look at your face, it makes my scars ache." The scars I got from him. You might initially think that he's talking about Goldie Roger, but what if I told you that this is actually from Rockstar Xebec? Yes, I believe that Rockstar Xebec is Shanks' father. We know that Shanks was at God Valley, and so was Xebec the day that Roger found him, but we don't know exactly what happened to Xebec. You see, Whitebeard was once a main member of the Rocks crew. In fact, I assume he was the right-hand man to Rocks. But these insane individuals were known for arguing and fighting constantly, brutal fights, even though they were all on the same crew, a pirate super team of the world's most dangerous. So it's very possible that Rocks and Whitebeard had their own disagreements at times and ended up getting into brawls over any dispute. Whitebeard even doesn't want Odin on his crew because he knows how chaotic and hectic things can get when you have way too many massive personalities this large on the same ship. The Rocks were known for not liking each other, not getting along, and so when Whitebeard talks about his own scars aching from seeing Shanks' face, what if this is because he's actually seeing Rockstar Xebec's face in Shanks? And after all these years, seeing a fully grown Shanks reminds him of his former captain. I also just find it funny how Shanks sends Rockstar to see Whitebeard. Whitebeard was furious and felt disrespected, but what if I told you there was a hidden message, a hidden inside joke here? Because if Shanks is really Rock's son and he knows Whitebeard was a member of the Rocks pirates, this is why Oda chose for Shanks to send Whitebeard this young new pirate known as Rockstar. I posted a meme on the community a few weeks ago, Rocks D Star, and while this is all in good fun, I actually started thinking more and more about this while writing this video. What if Rockstar actually is a hidden meaning, a clue to Shanks' origins? Think about it, a red-haired pirate which represents Shanks since he is red-haired Shanks, and his name has rocks in it, but it doesn't stop there, because rocks is only the first half, with the second half being Star. And if our theory is right about Shanks being a Celestial Dragon and all also Rocksteady Xebec's son, this is insane because celestial refers to heavenly but also referring to space and the sky in the heavens. Now think about celestial bodies, and with J. Garcia Saturn being represented as a planet, the name star being a celestial body makes for one of the craziest names when you really break it down. In other words, this young new member of Shanks' crew might have only been shown with a former Rocks pirate member because his name hints towards Shanks being a red-haired pirate, and then the Rocks being Xebec and the star the celestial dragon. And so when you look back at this meeting now between Rocks and Whitebeard and then Shanks coming in after, there's so many vague little references hidden in plain sight. Truly go to foreshadowing.
I hope you know my boss will hear about all of this!
Don't make me laugh.
Our dream is to go full-time on YouTube, but we need your help to make that come true. So consider leaving a super thanks in the comment with your hottest One Piece take, and you could be featured in a future video where I give my opinion on your crazy opinion. And you can also support us by joining our Patreon in the description. I believe Rocks is the strongest haki master in One Piece, and strength-wise I would put him up there in the same tier as Prime Whitebeard and Prime Roger. But if I had to pick between the three, I'd put him above them all. But why do I believe this? The Rocks Pirates were an Avengers dream team put together by their leader Rocksteady Xebec, a powerful and feared crew who challenged the world government with the goal of conquering the world. The Rocks Pirates were known for being violent, aggressive, and even fighting each other to the death over disagreements. It was a tough and brutal culture that the Rocks cultivated that made them the most feared crew to ever sail the seas. A crew of conquerors, a crew of a bunch of insane, powerful, and ambitious individuals. But I believe Xebec orchestrated, or at the very least promoted, this for a very specific reason, and that has to do with the true nature of haki. In Whole Cake Island, we learn about how haki blooms. Although Rayleigh, a haki master, trained Luffy in all three forms for 2 straight years, he reveals through a mini flashback that haki blooms in the heated exchange of intense battle. Through high-stake fights, your haki reaches another level completely and grows to its fullest potential. Luffy knew the basics and had mastered haki's fundamentals at their core, but it was only after fighting other powerful haki users that his strength became to multiply at a ridiculous growth. Not only do you grow stronger, but you can also apply this to abilities and techniques. For example, in the fight with Katakuri, this is how Luffy learns Future Sight. Luffy continuously surpasses his limits because he keeps searching out enemies who are much stronger. For example, in the beginning of Punk Hazard, Luffy was excited and focused on taking on the challenge of the Yonko. Why did he have this mentality right after coming back from his training with Rayleigh? Well, because he knows that this is what it would take to become the strongest and for his haki to truly awaken. And going back to Shanks, we can also apply this to him as he was fighting Mihawk as his rival. This is why the Yonko have been Luffy's target ever since he entered the New World, as he knows that they are the most powerful haki users in the sea, and to become the freest among all pirates, he would have to learn from them and also conquer. But how does this relate back to Rocks? Well, think about how you have multiple conquerors constantly fighting to the death. You have ridiculously powerful pirates with absurd potential fighting every time they link up over the most petty of arguments. And so I call it the Rocks philosophy theory because the man at the top had to be the most powerful haki user. He had to be extremely respected by someone like Kaido, who solely respects strength. And to me, this makes Rocksteady Xebec truly the strongest, or at the very least one of the most ridiculous haki users in the entire series. And then going back to Shanks, I think it's fair to say that he has the strongest haki in One Piece currently. So of course, if he's the son of Xebec, it's only fitting that he also had this haki. And now looking back at Shanks, I truly believe this makes him the strongest pirate of the current era. Shanks' haki is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen, as a crew who doesn't even use devil fruits, and he scared away Green Bull from all the way outside of Wano with his mere presence. With the perspective of Shanks being Xebec's son, this also makes me love Goldie Roger's character even more. Roger's greatest enemy was Xebec, and his other greatest enemy was the Celestial Dragons. As a Will of D member, he is the enemy of the gods. Now, if Roger really raised Shanks and fully believed in the innocence of Shanks as a child instead of his fate, it would be a beautiful story. And this fits with Roger's character already. Remember back to when Goldie Roger entrusted Garp with Ace. He even says, "A child who is yet to be born bears no sin." And the same statement can be applied to baby Shanks. If his father is Xebec, the craziest pirate in the world, and his mother is an evil celestial dragon, it was Roger putting aside his own personal bias and decided to let Shanks become his own person, not to be judged by his parents and where he comes from. Similarly, Whitebeard also shared a similar sentiment with my favorite quote in the entire series. He says, "It doesn't matter who your parents are or where they come from, we're all children of the sea." And it would be crazy if he actually learned this lesson from Goldie Roger taking in Shanks. Also, going back to Garp, he was not happy with Luffy following in Shanks' footsteps. And it would be interesting if it's not only because Shanks is a pirate, but also because he reminds him of Rocksteady Xebec. And finally, it would also made the meeting between Kaido and Shanks very interesting as well. Oda is saving some massive reveals for Shanks, because even though we've seen his bounty, we don't even know his full name yet. And what could be a bigger reveal than Shanks being not only the son of a celestial dragon, but also the legendary pirate Rockstar Xebec. And yeah, that would make Shanks' name Rox D Shanks. No wonder why the Gorosei wanted it wiped away from his bounty, because we know they try to hide the D from everyone's name, from Luffy when he went into Gear 5, and even Goldie Roger, Goldie to Gold. If we look at the Yonko bounty reveals, which was also the God Valley chapter where we're first introduced as Xebec, we can notice that all 4 Yonko at that time were actually connected to rocks if this theory is true. Kaido and Big Mom, of course, Blackbeard, who's inherited his will in many ways, or at least he has many connections with his ship being the Xebec, with his island being Hachinosu, and many others. But then finally, Shanks was the odd man out. But following this trend, if he was Xebec's son, that would make all the Yonkos during that chapter that Rockstar Xebec was revealed all connected to him. I mean, Roger and Whitebeard are even connected to rocks as well, as their bounties were also revealed in that chapter. Shanks being the only one out of 6 pirates to not be connected to Rockstar Xebec during that chapter would be a strange move by Oda. But who would have ever thought that he would take it this far, making his baby the son of Roger's biggest enemy? I also wonder if Xebec had red hair, but he doesn't have to. That could have came from Shanks' mom, and maybe that's why Roger didn't immediately realize this. If Oda's goal is to continue the path of hyping up Shanks, I can't think of a better way to do so. Think about how Luffy was hyped up by the reveal that Dragon and Garp were his family, or Ace with Roger at Marineford. Same for Yamato and Kaido. It's a common reveal that Oda saves for the biggest of characters. But what are the implications of Rockstar Xebec being Shanks' father? Being found in a treasure chest by the Pirate King implies that Shanks was destined to be a great pirate. But when you consider that this baby was left in a treasure chest during the event where his father was trying to take over the world, we can have even greater expectations for Shanks. And the treasure chest itself makes me think that Shanks has to be the son of a pirate. And just like a Jolly Roger or an eye patch, what is really more piratey than a treasure chest? I also want you to sit back and think about how insane this will make Rockstar Xebec. If Roger's character is improved by taking in a baby celestial dragon who's the son of his greatest enemy, imagine how crazy it is for a Will of D member to have a child with a celestial dragon. On one hand, I could see Xebec taking the celestial dragon wifey as a hostage against the Marines and the world government, because if she was on his side, it would be a lot easier for him to fire his forces against the world government directly. It would mean that the Marines would have to be extra careful as they are forced to obey the celestial dragons or whoever is holding her hostage, and this had to infuriate the celestial dragon lineage like no other. And with criminals as notorious as the Rocks pirates, you can't slip up. I also think this would make Rockstar Xebec the most disrespectful Will of D member ever, as he's getting with his natural enemy and someone who's told horror stories about him. Just like we found out in Dressrosa when Corazon tells Law that he was raised to fear the Will of D as an evil boogeyman-like figure. And by being with a celestial dragon, he could have learned a lot about their culture, their traditions. He could have learned a lot of their weaknesses, their biggest fears, their strengths, and so invading them would be a lot more rewarding. Now, adding to all of this, I have a crazy theory, because what if Rockstar Xebec actually became a celestial dragon at God Valley? During the reverie, Sabo's brother Stelly says how he wants to become a celestial dragon, which proves that you can become one. But how does one become a celestial dragon in the first place? I have a few theories, but the most likely and logical conclusion is simply marrying into a celestial dragon family. For example, an arranged marriage between Stelly and another female celestial dragon royalty, and Stelly even says that by putting in a good word, Garp can help him achieve the goal. And I think now you get where I'm going with this, because what if I told you that Rockstar Xebec actually married a celestial dragon and this was his plan to become one? This way, the world government and the Marines would bow down to him. This fits with the goal of him taking over the world. As we saw with Sengoku in Marineford, he follows Shanks' orders, and same with Lucci and Mosgard during the reverie. This may have been why Garp and Roger were chosen to face the Rocks pirates, and Xebec specifically, since Roger as a pirate has no problem getting his hands dirty and fighting a now celestial dragon. And same with Garp. Garp even shows in the reverie that he's not like the other Marines. He'll be honest and bad talk to celestial dragons, and we find out that he hates them, so this might be why Garp was really the only person who could deal with these pirates, aside from his strength of course. With Garp being friends with pirates like Roger, who else but him to rely on to face Xebec, who had now become a celestial dragon through this technicality? I really hope Oda expands more on how you can become a celestial dragon in the future. But what if Xebec actually got married to the celestial dragon at God Valley? That could also explain why there were other celestial dragons and their slaves that Garp had to defend, because they were celestial dragons who were there attending the wedding ceremony ceremony for Shanks' mother. Now, with the God Valley incident being erased from history, if you watched our God Valley mega theory, you'll know that we believe that Whitebeard may have actually launched God Valley up into the sky like a knock-up stream, making God Valley a sky island. We know the celestial dragons wanted this island erased, and it just so happens that during the God Valley incident, this did happen. And while Elbaf may be Shanks' territory, what if I told you that his secret main base island is actually God Valley? What would be more fitting than Shanks taking God Valley for himself? He's a celestial dragon, he's Rockstar Xebec's son, he's destined to be the person to eventually find God Valley and make it his home. In the very first chapter of One Piece, we see that Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates are using Luffy's home village as their secret base. Shanks even says we might have been using this base for a little too long. This proves that Shanks and his crew use secret bases and that they require their own privacy. So what better for the Red Hair Pirates to make their own new secret base in the new world than in the sky of God Valley, the mysterious island that no one knows the location for? Who better than Shanks to have control over the One Piece's most important island besides Laugh Tale? After all, I would expect Shanks' main base to be as important as Wano, which we know was the most important arc and arguably the most important island in One Piece that we've seen so far. Combining this with Elbaf as one of Shanks' territories, and now you can see how Shanks tops the other three Yonko in hype and achievements. We know Shanks has been to Skypiea, so he may have been searching the skies and eventually found God Valley in the sky during his travels in the New World. We know there are other sky islands, but Skypiea and Shandora have really been the only ones important so far. And the idea of Shanks having a territory and secret base in the sky that no one could access except him is one of the coolest ideas ever. Plus, we haven't really been to a sky island like Skypiea since the pre-time skip. It would just give him such an advantage and a different contrast as his base is not in the ocean below like the other three Yonko. And I also have my doubts and speculation on Shandora being shot up by the knock-up stream during the exact perfect timing when Nolan had exposed the City of Gold. I always thought this was way too perfect to be true, a way too unnatural event considering how islands are built, so a knock-up stream launching through the ground and forcing its way through only for Shandora and not the rest of Jaya just seems insane. I always thought that some admiral with Whitebeard's devil fruit did this in the past, or a Gorosei member, or I guess Emu is also a possibility here. But then again, looking at God Valley, it can be parallel to Shandora and Jaya, as we also explain in that theory that we believe that God Valley could be the left eye of Shandora and the Emerald City. Shanks has to believe in God Valley because he already knows of the existence of the One Piece, Joyboy, and Skypiea. In other words, if anyone was crazy enough to explore the Sky Island, it would have to be Shanks, and with Roger finding Skypiea, it would be perfect with Shanks being from God Valley if he found it in the sky. I picture it going like this: Shanks was searching for the Emerald City, but he actually ended up finding God Valley, and he may have not even realized it was God Valley at first, since he might have just been excited that he found a legendary Emerald City. And just like drunk Whitebeard telling tales of Lunarians, I imagine Roger at some point may have leaked information on the Emerald City or God Valley, because we believe that they are both one and the same, and this was all explained in a previous video, the greatest God Valley theory. Emerald City was mentioned alongside the City of Gold in the One Piece by Bellamy and Jaya, so just by being mentioned alongside these two legendary places that do exist, I like to think that the Emerald City will be just as important and also does exist somewhere in the One Piece world. So with Shanks being known for utilizing these secret bases, what better than God Valley, a place that no one can find and has been erased from history? Blackbeard could even fight Shanks at God Valley, as they're both connected to Rockstar Xebec, and we believe Blackbeard will search for God Valley as well to learn about how to become immortal. And if you're interested in that, go check out that God Valley video after this. I also believe that Shanks has the 4th row poneglyph, so that means it's either at Elbaf or God Valley, and that could make God Valley, not Elbaf, the place where Blackbeard actually kills Shanks. Now that I've convinced you of Shanks being both a Will of D member but also a celestial dragon, and his territories being God Valley and Elbaf, let's look back at what we analyzed in the beginning of the video, Shanks being the god of war and why this all matches up perfectly. This revelation will complete his role even more as a bridge between the two who are fated by destiny to face one day. The Will of D and the celestial dragons have this sort of magical, inevitable confrontation that is looming in the future. Corazon explains that the Will of D is a natural enemy of the gods. It makes me really excited for Shanks moving forward, but this war puts Shanks right in the crossfires of both sides. I believe though that Shanks is siding a lot more with the Will of D side. Shanks is already raised with the spirit of the Will of D, as he was raised by Goldie Roger for a brief time and then eventually became a young apprentice again. It doesn't seem like he was raised in the celestial dragon culture, as it's even stated that he's from the West Blue. We do know that Shanks is interested in the One Piece, which is something that the world government does not want anyone to to find. I think it's possible that Shanks might be after the One Piece, of course to learn the truth like Goldie Roger, but also to see how the will of D and celestial dragons tie into 900 years of history. Many love the evil Shanks theories, but I just don't think Shanks has ever shown signs of this. He's a true pirate as well, which puts him at odds with the traditional celestial dragons and the world government who say piracy is a crime. I believe that Shanks will have a role to play on a little bit of both sides, and we're already witnessing a war with the celestial dragons, as Sabo has declared one during his invasion of Marijoa during the Reverie. But ultimately, I believe that Shanks will be similar to how we mentioned Law and Corazon and their connected parallels relationships, a different view of the celestial dragons. So far, Luffy has looked down on Charlos and the celestial dragons as slave owners, but with Shanks being a celestial dragon, it would show him the light that they are not all like this. And just like a former celestial dragon helped Law, Shanks is a celestial dragon in blood, and will help Luffy realize this and have a better understanding of the world. We know Luffy will have to fight Shanks eventually, and I guess in this case you could say that it's even more destined because there is this idea of fate surrounding the two parties of them always coming together. With Shanks going after the One Piece, it makes him now Luffy's friendly rival, which is what Luffy always wanted. He wanted to meet back up with Shanks and one day surpass him as a pirate. I think Luffy will get a chance to meet Shanks, finally in Elbaf. Think about how on one hand he is a natural enemy to Blackbeard, but he's also a close friend of Luffy. This contradictory dynamic would hit even harder.
リーはいつも数奇な運命に満ちている。
Make sure you subscribe and hit notifications because I'm already starting part 2 where I'm going to reveal the man marked by flames and Shanks' connections to Kid, Oroge, and so much more. And then part 3 will discuss all of Ragnarok and all of Elbaf. If you liked anything I said here, leave a like, and here's a video where I explain why I believe Zoro has the will of D.